Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. I've missed you, and I'm so glad you made time to join me today, because what I'm about to tell you has the kind of warmth and electricity that makes the air feel different. Take a breath, settle in, and let me set the scene for a story that has hovered behind whispers and sideways glances, until now. We have a window into something private, something tender, something that promises to change the way you think about one of the most talked about connections in our world. Tonight, we're stepping behind the curtain with Cemre Arda, and the secret love messages she says she received from none other than Gökberk Yıldırım. You read the title, you felt that jolt in your chest, and yes, you heard me right. Cemre, with her calm poise and that soft smile she wears when truth feels both heavy and sweet, agreed to talk about the messages that tied their days together like a ribbon. Not the big gestures for the red carpet, not the staged moments that shatter into flashes of light as quickly as they appear. No. She spoke about the quiet things, the words that arrive when only two people are listening, and how those words can become a world. Before we dive headfirst into what she revealed, if you're new to Turkish Spotlight Secrets and you live for stories that pulse with emotion and real human texture, make yourself at home. Tap that subscribe button and turn on the bell, because nights like this are exactly why we're here, following the threads of love and ambition, vulnerability and pride, to see where they lead. Now, are you ready? Because what follows comes from Cemre's own recollection, shared in a conversation that has been echoing across sets and studios, in group chats and on the edges of cafe tables, where curiosity leans in and refuses to leave. Cemre described a relationship that never needed to shout in order to be heard. She didn't dress it up with theatrics. She didn't diminish it with sarcasm. She simply allowed the memory to exist, the way you hold a photograph in your hand and let your eyes adjust. Her voice caught once, just once, when she talked about how the messages from Gökberk became the pulse of their days. It was not about performative declarations, it was about timing and intention. A text that arrived between takes. A note tucked into a script. A sentence that found her when the world was being unkind. She said that Gökberk had a way of speaking to her that felt like light finding the corners of a room. He didn't just say you're amazing and leave it there, he detailed why. He'd remind her of the first rehearsal where she took a risk nobody asked for and how the room fell quiet after her scene. He would point to the early morning call times and the way she reached for excellence even when the coffee had stopped working. According to Cemre, the messages were full of real noticing, the kind that makes you feel seen, not as a headline or a costume, but as a person with a pulse and a plan. And there were words of steadiness for the heavy days. You know how it is for someone like Cemre, the pressure has a way of knocking on the door at dawn and staying until midnight. Scripts pile up, rumors circle, expectations multiply. She admitted there were nights she questioned whether she was doing enough, whether she was enough. Those were the moments when her phone would light up and there he'd be, saying things that didn't just comfort, they anchored. He'd remind her of the mountain she had already climbed, of how many times she had found her footing on a ledge that looked too narrow to survive. He didn't diminish her fear, he spoke to the part of her that could carry it. But don't mistake these messages for motivational speeches wrapped in bubble wrap. Cemre made it clear that there was romance there, a softness that belonged to them alone. The words were careful and intimate, like a hand held under the table. He would describe the way he missed her in terms that did not feel borrowed from a script. He'd talk about hearing a song in a cafe and realizing the chorus felt like the way she laughed when she forgot to be careful. He once wrote that the silence in the back seat on the way home after a long day felt safer because she was in it, that the city blinked differently when she was near. It was simple and sincere. That, she said, was the whole point. There was one passage she remembered almost verbatim because it found her at a low moment. She was doubting the shape of a performance, and the criticism had grown teeth. The message arrived early, before the sun did, a gentle confession that he believed in her craft more on the difficult days than on the easy ones, because conviction means more when doubt is present. He wrote about watching her from the wings, about how the way she chooses a direction inside a scene reminds him of someone opening a window in a room they don't want to leave. She said she kept that message for months, opening it like you open an old letter when you need to be reminded of who you are. Cemre called their message thread a diary they didn't know they were writing together. A living document of what it meant to be two public people trying to build something private in the space between flights and call times. She emphasized how genuine it felt, no posturing, no angle. According to her, that sincerity was the real treasure. The texts weren't designed for survival outside their bubble, they were composed in the language of trust. And because of that, even now, the memory of them feels like a room she can still step into when she needs calm. Why does this revelation matter? In an age where love is often staged like a performance, and every touch becomes a thumbnail, it's easy to think everything is a strategy. Cemre reminded us that the heart still negotiates in the smallest currency, a sentence received at the right time, a few words that prove someone is paying attention. What the world saw, glamour, tension, the briefest flashes of unguarded happiness. The messages explained with details that never made it onto the carpets or the press lines. Of course, there were days when the world pressed too hard. She spoke about a moment on set when whispers turned into commentary and she went quiet for longer than usual. He noticed, from miles away, and wrote to say he understood the complicated math of wanting to be excellent while being watched by people who are waiting to say you're not. He assured her that her worth was not a public vote, that her work wasn't a popularity contest. He reminded her of the first time they met, when she teased him for pretending not to recognize her, and how he'd later confessed he was nervous and didn't want to say the wrong thing. He wrote that certainty isn't the absence of nerves, it's choosing someone through and because of them. And yes, the tenderness had its own poetry. There were descriptions of how the day shifted when she walked into a room, not in a dramatic blaze, but in a subtle tilt, like the way sunlight changes when a cloud moves. He recalled a night drive along the water when both of them were too tired to talk, yet the silence felt like a promise rather than empty space. He said her presence reset his understanding of rest. He would say he missed the way she lists ideas with her hands, as if her fingers helped the sentences find their shape. These were the ways he said I love you without saying it like a slogan. If you're curious whether Cemre gave any scandalous detail or crossed any lines, the answer is no. She was careful, respectful, almost protective of what still felt sacred. She never turned her experience into a spectacle. Instead, she drew a circle around the lesson, that words can keep two people steady when the ground is moving. That messages, short ones, unshowy ones, can carry the weight of faith and the softness of desire all at once. And what about now? She admitted that the relationship, as it had been, belongs to before. Lives move. Schedules bend people in opposite directions. The story changed. But she said something that caught everyone's breath: the messages didn't stop mattering just because the chapter turned. Their impact remained. They had taught her how shared language can be a shelter, how intimacy can be maintained in half hours and midnight check-ins. She carries that knowledge forward. It was less about nostalgia and more about gratitude. There was a moment in the interview where she laughed, the kind of laugh that has history in it, and said the two of them were terrible at pretending not to care. They would try to be cool, try to be clinical about planning, and inevitably one of them would reach for the other with a sentence that asked, in essence, "Are you okay, really?" The answer was always layered, and their messages made space for all the layers. That, she suggested, might be the most intimate thing of all. If you've ever doubted the power of a message that simply says I'm proud of you, let this be your evidence. If you've ever thought the only grand gestures worth talking about are the ones with confetti and lights, hear this and reconsider. Cemre's story invites us to redefine romance as presence, that gentle, consistent presence that finds you when the audience leaves and the mirror feels too honest. My friends, the ripple of this conversation is already everywhere. The crew members who watched them dart between call sheets and shared looks are whispering that it makes sense now. The fans who always believed there was a deeper thread are nodding with that I knew it grin. And even the skeptics are softening a little, because there is something undeniably human about two people creating a language of reassurance when the world is loud. Before we wrap, I want to echo something Cemre highlighted with such grace: authenticity. She said she never felt like she was decoding performance. She felt included, trusted. The messages were not bait for a narrative. They were a private practice of care. And that authenticity, she believes, is what made their connection so sturdy while it lasted. If you take anything from her story, let it be this: don't underestimate the love that hides in the quiet. Now, tell me, are you as moved as I am? Do you feel that little ache that comes from recognizing yourself in someone else's tenderness? I would love to hear your thoughts. Drop your feelings, your questions, your own stories in the comments below. This community sings when you share, and I'm listening. If you enjoyed peeking into this softer, truer dimension of a relationship we all thought we knew, please show some love, like this video, send it to a friend who needs a reminder that words still matter, and subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets if you haven't already. Your support keeps our late-night lights on and our stories flowing. We've walked together through a secret garden tonight. The garden of messages between Cemre Arda and Gökberk Yıldırım. We've touched the vines of encouragement and traced the petals of romance that never needed a stage. We've felt how sincerity transforms a screen into a heartbeat. And though their chapter has closed, its pages refuse to stop glowing. Thank you for being here, for trusting me with your time and your curiosity. I promise you, more stories are coming, more revelations that respect the people at their center while honoring the emotions that made them. Until then, hold close the lesson we found: say the true thing when it counts, and say it with care. I'll see you in the next one. This is Turkish Spotlight Secrets, signing off with a smile and a promise to return. Good night, my friends, and take gentle care of your hearts.